Hi all, Connie here. So today I want to show you how to make a super simple, subtle sort of little textured stitch. I call these tiny treble popcorns. And all they are, you're just working treble crochets in between single crochet stitches, okay? So what I've got here, I've got a base of single crochets and then a row of alternating single treble, and then another row of singles. So let's work through this together. All right, so I'm just going to chain one and turn. And I'm going to single crochet into my first stitch, and then I'm going to treble in the next one. All right, so we're going to yarn over twice, insert our hook into the next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop so that you have 4 loops on your hook, yarn over and pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. All right, so that's our treble, and you see how it's leaning way over to the side here? That's because it's so much taller than the single crochet. So when we come down to the next stitch, we're just going to let that treble crochet bow out or loop outward on the back side of our fabric as we're working. And that is going to become our little pop of texture on the other side. All right, so let's do it again. So we're going to treble crochet in the next stitch. So there's 1, 2, 3. And again, we're just going to single crochet in the next stitch and just let that treble crochet pop out on the back side. All right, so do a couple more here. 2 and 3, single crochet, and 1 more treble. So I'm going to have a total of 4. I'm working off an odd number of stitches so that I can finish with that single crochet in the last stitch to bring the last treble crochet down into that little textured pop. All right, so now I'm going to chain 1 and turn because I'm going to do another row of single crochet stitches into the top loops. All right, and so that is what those guys look like. So when I'm working into the tops of the stitches, you'll notice because this treble crochet is curving so much, it has pushed the top. So here's the top of our single crochet, but it has pushed the top of the treble crochet way back here. All right, so here's our first single crochet. And then to get our second stitch, which is the top of the treble, we've got to kind of turn it all the way around here. All right, so there's the second stitch. Here's the third one, that's the single crochet. And then here's the fourth one, so way back around here to get under there. And another thing you may notice is that the tops, if you look at the size of the V's, these actually aren't too bad. Sometimes it's more noticeable, but the tops of the treble crochets are a little bit bigger than the tops of the single crochets. And that's not uncommon to see when you're working taller stitches. So don't worry about that. Just make sure that you find the top of that treble crochet. If it is kind of curved around, you got to turn it so that you can find those top 2 loops there. All right, and so here is our last single crochet right there. We don't want to skip this guy or our stitch count will be off. And let's do another row. Let's do 1 more row of these guys. All right, so I'm going to chain 1 and turn. I'm going to start with a single crochet in the first stitch, and then I'm just going to treble in the next one. So yarn over twice, and then treble. All right, so that's all there is to this stitch. It's really simple because it's just these 2 stitches that you're alternating back and forth. And like I said, you want to work with an odd number of stitches unless you're working in the round. If you're doing this pattern in the round, you'll want an even number of stitches because you'll join back together. And so your 2 stitches will butt up against each other there. So what am I doing? Treble crochet next. That's what happens when I get to talking while I'm crocheting. I lose count and everything else. All right, so I should have, 1 more here? So there's our single, 1 more treble. And then we'll single crochet in our last one. Oh, you know what? Let me back up here. I'm going to show you something else. I've talked about this in another video, but if you want to try to make sure that that top loop of your treble doesn't get too far stretched out, what you can do, so wrap your yarn around and you can kind of hold on to it with your fingertip here. You can even like wrap it around this way. If your trebles tend to get really loose, you can wrap it around this way. And so if you keep tighter control on those loops as you work the stitch, then they're less likely to get stretched out. And another way you can do that is as you work these loops off, oops, lost focus there for a second. So keep these loops tight, and then I also grab onto this part so that I don't stretch out those loops too much, okay? And so I'm going to grab again, and I'm going to hold it and make sure that I don't pull on anything too much. And so I just kind of keep those loops as close to the same size as they are on the shaft of the hook as I can. All right, so here's our last stitch, and that's our next row. So let me turn around here. There they are. It's a happy little group of pretty subtle texture. So see, they don't bump up very much. Some of them do a little bit more than others, and it's just treble crochets. It's just singles and trebles. Now I want to show you one more thing with this. So as I am coming along here, if I'm having trouble finding the top 2 loops, you can also just work into the space between the 2 stitches. So right here that's the left side of your treble crochet. If you're working right-handed anyway, if you're working left-handed, it would be the right-hand side. So you can actually work into this space as well. And so what you're doing, so here's our top 2 loops. And then this loop right here, that's your 3rd loop of the top of your treble crochet. And so if you work all the way over here instead of into the top of the loop, that's going to be okay too. So here's our single. So I'm going to work under the top 2 loops of that one. And then over here, I'm going to come all the way around to the side of it and work into the space between, well, maybe work into the space between the treble crochet and the single. All right, and then into the top of the single crochet. And so again, right here, all the way over here, this is the top of our treble, or we can come down here and work into the space between it. And I don't see a whole lot of difference between where you put your hook with this stitch. I was afraid that doing it that way might kind of flatten things out, but it doesn't really. It doesn't seem to make a lot of difference in the finished bobbles. So here they are. We've got, these ones are worked into the top of the treble crochet, and then these ones are worked into the space on the other side of the treble, between the treble and the single. And so the biggest thing that you can see by doing it differently is right here. That's that 3rd loop, all right? And so you can see that coming across the space a little bit. Right there's another one, all right? And so that's the biggest difference that I see in between where you place your hook when you do the single crochets coming across. So I think either way is fine. So if you have a preference, like if you feel like this opens up too much of a gap, maybe try to make sure that you work into the top 2 loops only. But if you have trouble finding them and you get tired of flipping it over, try it this way. Try working into the space between the stitches instead of into the top 2 loops, because like I said, I don't really see a whole lot of difference in the actual texture. And of course, depending on what your pattern is while you're working this stitch, you may work different stitches coming across, because usually what you'll do is you'll work these little fake bobbles. You'll work these on a wrong side facing row. So this was how we worked them, so that the trebles popped out on the back side, and then our right side row would be the single crochet rows that come in between. So yeah, just experiment with it and see which one you prefer, and then do it that way, because I really don't see any difference in how the little bobbles or puffs, the little bowed out treble crochets look between the two versions. So yeah, that is tiny treble popcorn stitches. If they have another name, I don't know it, but yeah, they're a fun way to add some texture to your work, and I hope that you'll have fun with this one. So I'll see you next time. Bye.